Daikaiju Network, where I have a cat on my lap. I am your co-host, Kent, along with your other co-host,
Jason. How's it going, everyone?
So I am in my family room. Wife
really?
and kids are gone,
I
so I
did not even
decided
notice.
my desk is a hot mess. And with everyone in my family gone for the next few days, I decided I'm going to be lazy and just leave the computer where I usually keep it, in the family room. So here we are. We are back after, what has it been, about a month since we last did a podcast?
A month plus, somewhere around there.
6 weeks, something like that. But we are back. As promised, we keep our promises, unlike some people. There's one person out there I'm talking to. We are back, and what we're going to be doing for the next, if my math is correct, and believe me, math was not one of my strong suits in school, for the next approximately 13 weeks, which will take us roughly around the Thanksgiving holiday, we are going to work through Spectreman. The reason why we're doing that is because when we took on both Spectreman and Kamen Rider, we realized, oh crap, there's like 150, 160 episodes between these two shows. We're going to be at this for a while. So we decided we want to speed up the process a little bit and eventually get to some other material as well. Not only that, if you have been listening for a little while now since we've been doing these two shows, Spectreman has kind of been the one that we've been kind of meh on. Although I will say, at least speaking for myself, this particular batch was pretty good. So hopefully maybe this show will turn around a little bit.
You know, I'm not, when I hear that, I'm sort of thinking to myself, I'd like to know what you're smoking.
Right? Well, here's the thing. Like, I even wrote in one of my, and you'll hear it when I give my final thoughts on one of the episodes here. I mention that every time I've said this in the past, like when we covered Ultra 7, every time when I would be like, hey, maybe the show has finally gained its footing and it's going to start actually being good, the show always ends up kicking me in the face and is like, nope, I'm still going to be terrible. So that has yet to, remain to be seen, and it'll continue to be that way for the next approximately 13 weeks. But like I said, speaking for myself, I thought this batch actually was one of the better batches we've covered of Spectreman so far. But that's what we're going to be doing for the next approximately 13 weeks. And then after that, we're a little unclear as far as whether we want to dig right into Kamen Rider, if we're going to do a few other things. We have yet to iron that stuff out. We'll kind of let you know a little bit more as we get closer to around the Thanksgiving holiday. We're going to be,
I know we're still going to be doing the year-end Kaiju Extravaganza.
I think that's a given if you follow us. All 0 of you out there that follow us. Again, a lot of that's far enough away. We'll figure that stuff out as time goes. But this time we're covering episodes 22 through 24. We intend right now on continuing to cover only 3 episodes per podcast. And again, like I said, that should take us around Thanksgiving. So depending upon how this ends up, we may or may not podcast the Thanksgiving weekend. We may postpone it to the week after, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
The other thing I want to mention is that with college football kind of right around the corner, I know right around that time of the year, we tend to switch over from our Saturday recording over to Sunday. So we're going to be pretty much be doing that again this year. But as far as Labor Day weekend, we're going to probably do it on Monday, or probably just sort of skip it out. I'm not sure if we decided on that yet, because I know I'll be in Iowa City for a couple days and be coming back here Sunday, the day before Labor Day. So
we might just skip Labor Day weekend entirely.
Okay. Yeah, because I know I mentioned either that Monday or just skip it out entirely. So
Well, and my kids, I'm not sure when it is. It's sometime this next month. Both of my kids are going to be doing soccer. So they both will end up having games on Saturdays as well at various times. So, yeah, again, it's that time of the year where podcasts are going to move to Sundays for a while. So, yeah, college football, which is better than the NFL. That's a fact. And
Yep.
and then my kids have soccer games. Both have soccer games now, and all that coming up here sometime in the next month. So before we dive into Spectreman, Jason, the usual housekeeping.
Yeah, as far as the housekeeping, if you see a subscribe button down below on YouTube or even on Rebel, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well as smash the like button down below. And you can follow us everywhere. You can find everything all in one place at our link tree URL that you can see right on your screen there /Daikaiju Network. And on video platforms besides YouTube, we're on Twitch, Rumble, Facebook, and as well as Odyssey. And audio platforms, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, as well as TuneIn. And we have both video and audio versions of our episodes right on our own website at DaikaijuNetwork.com.
Where we have yet to actually continue to write more stories and stuff. Well, mainly, it's a hub for the podcast.
A certain lazy person.
Hey, there are two lazy people here. It's a two-way street. It's not just me.
I at least do some postings on there.
You
mainly
post podcasts. Let's get honest here. You post the podcast. You don't post articles. It's been a while too since you've posted an article. In fact, it might have been longer for you since you've posted an article compared to me. I think the last one I posted was the open letter to the G-Fest committee. I think that was back in 20. I think it was like March or April of 20. I think that was the last one I posted, something like that. But let's dive right into Spectreman episodes 22 through 24. And episode 22 is titled The Violent Charge of the Dual-Bladed Monster Gilligand.
Mine is The Zuno, Part 2, Starship Hijack.
How the hell do these titles get so totally different? Like, it's one thing if there were minor differences, but
well, the DVD one that I have is made by the Eighth Man, I think it is .com. I'm not sure if they're still around or anything of the sort or what have you, but that's all I know.
But if some of you remember the last time we covered Spectreman, a month and a half or so ago, whenever that was, I was pretty high. I don't remember if you were or not, Jason, but I was pretty high on the episode before this where Zuno Man came in. And it was a very unique take on a Spectreman story where you had this alien that was taking over people's bodies and kind of was getting people killed in the process because he was putting himself in predicaments where the people ended up getting killed. But it seemed like both Dr. Gory and Spectreman met their match. And so here we are. It's the conclusion of that storyline.
We're doing all the Dr. Gory hand gestures.
He had some new ones this whole batch.
Yeah, in this 3 episodes that we're doing, it seemed like he did heck of a lot more hand gestures in here and a lot newer ones compared to the previous episodes that we've done up until now. And the other one that I sort of noticed in these 3 batches is that it felt like the battles were sort of, how do I put it, half-assed in a way.
Yeah, like first and foremost, going back to the hand gestures, I think it's starting in the next episode where the one hand gesture I noticed he kept doing the most was something. It was like this.
I think it was like this.
It was like it reminded me of a dog biting something, but like that's the one I saw the most, I think, starting in this next episode that we're going to talk about. And yeah, talking about the battles, I kind of thought that too. I thought they were half-assed, but at the same time, they were longer.
Yeah.
But like you said, half-assed. So in a way, it was lazy, lazy longer battles. LLB, easy longer battles.
And the music wasn't used a lot in certain areas, and
we'll get to that.
And there was some music that it just didn't feel right.
And actually, you talk about that. In fact, the music thing. Let's actually talk about that here because it involves this episode, I think, more so than the next two. Whereas, oh crap, my cat's at the door. I'm gonna have to go get her here in a second. It involves the final battle of this episode where between Spectreman and Gilligan, who is under the control of Zunoman. Zunoman is like infused itself in this Gilligan creature. It was odd that the sound effects were not totally muted, but really turned down. And then the music was sort of more in the forefront. And I thought a little inappropriate for what was taking place.
That
I gotta let my cat in here.
That and one, even the special was it the sound effects for this particular episode 22, was that it just felt like they sort of half-assed that part too, whereas the sound effect, it was really lacking within the final bout between Spectreman and Gilligan.
Yeah, it was strange, I thought. I don't know if that was an intentional thing that they did or if that maybe was some sort of difficulties they may have had in the post-production process of this episode. It's really hard to tell, but nevertheless, it's just strange how that turned out for that final battle. Zunoman, though, after he takes a hold of Karis at the beginning of the episode and then goes on Dr. Gory's ship, it's almost as if Dr. Gory finally met his match.
Yeah.
Because he ends up taking control of the ship to try to go back to his home planet. And Dr. Gory obviously is, as we used to say on this podcast years ago, throws a shit fit. And it's kind of funny seeing Dr. Gory lose a spadoinkle because we've seen hints of that over the course of the 21 episodes, but not to the degree that we see here, because I think he realizes that, he's sort of maybe slightly outmatched in this particular situation, but then he sabotages the directional controls of the ship, which then turns the ship around to head back to Earth.
Well, beforehand, Spectreman flies up to the spaceship when it was out in space and was trying to get a hold of it. And that was when Zunoman, who was disguised as Karis there, tries to use any weapons to try to get Spectreman off the spaceship there. And there were some sort of explosions and everything happening there. And that was when Dr. Gory sort of pretends to fall onto the control board there. And that was when he's sort of messed with everything, where he had the spaceship directing to go back to Earth, as well as have the controls set to automatic there, and then crash lands onto Earth there.
Yeah, it was a very interesting, and like I said, speaking for myself, and I don't know exactly yet where Jason stands on this batch, but I to me it comes off like maybe the writing perhaps, and again, we'll kind of see as we continue to cover this series moving forward, but I thought the writing was a little bit better. I thought the writing got better starting with the previous episode, the first storyline of this Zuno Man story line. I did hate repeating myself in a way there. But one of the things I thought was really strange, though, and it starts at the beginning of the final battle. Spectreman summons this sword and shield, which look very English. And I thought to myself, I'm like, why does this look, like Renaissance English, or medieval English weaponry? I mean,
You would think it'd be a little bit more exotic looking instead of just the medieval look to it.
The only reason I could think of why the weaponry looks like this is maybe that the producers maybe thought, hey, this looks exotic to us, and Spectreman is otherworldly. Or it could also be that maybe producing a sword and shield of that type was maybe cheaper and easier than trying to, create a samurai sword and all of that. I don't know, but
that could be one thing.
I thought it was a little strange. I'm not a fan of medieval English stuff. The history of medieval England is semi-interesting to me, but at the same time, I find it really dull. And so part of me half yawned when I saw that. I'm like, oh shit. Why? It's from a sword and shield. I'm yawning. I'm like, oh.
And the other thing that felt really odd to me was sort of the ending part of the battle when he cuts off Gilligan's head there, and it was still moving headless, and picks up the Spectreman sword, was about to take care of Spectreman when he was on the ground, and then all of a sudden just the whole body just falls down there.
Well,
and then you have Zuno Man separating himself from Gilligan's body there. And then you have this really weird thing where he just kind of spins around Spectreman in sort of a weird way there. And I'm losing my train of thought here. Spectreman kind of gets a little bit dizzy, falls down. Zuno Man was about to take control of Spectreman, and then he then quickly gets back up to Spectreman, uses these discs, and then throws one of them at Zuno Man, and then he's just kind of gone, and then that was it.
Yeah, I was wondering how the episode ended, because I remember Zuno Man saying to Spectreman, I'm going to take control of your body. And I must have been doing something in the kitchen or something at that point. And then I turn around, and then all of a sudden George's friends are trying to look for him. And then, he's like, oh yeah, I'm chasing monsters and stuff. I'm like, wait a minute, what happened here?
Yeah, it just went
and I didn't bother to rewind.
It just went like a flash, pretty much.
I know, it was weird, but I just was like, I don't know. I just assumed Zuno Man disappeared home somehow, or Spectreman transported him to his. I'm like, I'm not going to bother to rewind this.
Well, now you know.
Yeah, but do we want to go into final thoughts and ratings?
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead?
All right, let me pull up my notes here. All right, the episode is well done and pretty entertaining. There's some weird moments, such as a sword and shield falling from the heavens for Spectreman to use. Spectreman doesn't seem to be the type of character to use an English-style sword and shield for battle. The battle between Spectreman and the Zuno-controlled Gilligan was nicely choreographed, but the sound design is just strange. Sound effects are nearly muted and the music is more present, but even that is turned down some. The ending was a bit confusing, but overall it was a nice episode, and I gave it a B-.
Yeah, for me on this one, it sort of felt the same, but then it started to go downhill for me. particularly with the whole battle scene. It was just really odd, like what Kent mentioned as far as the sound effects. It just sort of lacked in certain areas. Mute or volume was turned down really slow, and music was sort of lacking. And then you have music that just didn't fit well with it, and the final battle scene between Spectreman and Gilligan, and as well as Man, was sort of half-assed and it drug out too long, I would say, for the Gilligan part, and really too quick for the Zuno one. In that regard, it just felt sort of rushed at the very end with Zuno Man, but then drug out too long for the Gilligan part, and it just sort of felt messy in the second one for me. So episode 22 for me gets a D.
Oh wow!
For me, so
it couldn't have been more night and day. Usually we're relatively close.
Like I said before we started the episode here, I was like, I like to know what you're smoking.
Well, I want to know what you're smoking. Again, a two-way street here. What are you smoking? No, what are you smoking?
No, it's a one-way street here, buddy.
I don't know. Here's the thing, though, and I will say this, and I should have said this at the top of the show. And I don't know. I've been sick, and I got really sick here like week and a half, 2 weeks ago, where I had like as high as 102-degree fever. And I started thinking, though, over the last week, leading up to this podcast, I thought to myself, I've been by and large pretty tough on this show and showed my exasperation at how preposterous this thing is and how preposterous it is in a very bad way. Whereas Ultra 7 was incredibly frustrating, this one is stupidly frustrating. And I wondered to myself, I believe I still stand by my thoughts on what I had when we covered Ultra 7. But when I started thinking about Spectreman, I thought to myself, am I actually being too tough on Spectreman? That yes, this was during the early 70s. Everybody who follows this stuff understands that not only were movie studios having issues with budgets and stuff because television was, people were staying home due to television, but even TV shows, when you take a look at a number of tokusatsu shows at the time, you got this one. I don't know what Ultraman series was on at about this time. Then you got Super Robot Red Baron, which if you haven't seen that, that's kind of cheap looking in a lot of respects too. Then you had Iron King. Like you had a number of shows, including like Kamen Rider, I think was on about the same time too. They all in many ways look cheap, and I think held them back. The lack of maybe a true budget per se held them back from their potential to realize the vision that the producers and creators had here. And so maybe I subconsciously went into this particular batch maybe being more forgiving, but I know this particular storyline with Zuno Man, like I said, I liked the first part of this storyline, so I figured unless it was a complete travesty, which I didn't completely rule out, I thought I should enjoy at least this one. And then it was a question of, okay, well then what will the final 2 episodes in this batch be? And we'll get to that. In fact, we're going to start that right now with episode 23 titled Traffic Accident Monster Kuruma Nicorus.
Mine is Danger in the Streets, Part 1, Heavy Traffic.
Oh my gosh. Like Danger in the Streets was sort of funny in and of itself, but then you add the colon heavy traffic. It's almost as if you yourself just decided, I'm going to make my own titles for these episodes.
Maybe I should do that one of these times, but No, these are true titles according to this DVD set that I have, and I think you'll like the last one as far as the subtitle for the next one. But it's like when I saw these, like, can't probably gonna not have it.
Well, maybe that's something we should start now, is where we give the titles that are DVDs and then we give our own version of it. So, like, I'm going to call this one Kid Gets Hit by a Car Part 1 or something like that. But yeah, by the way, I have been studying Japanese, although the last 2 months I haven't, just because my kids have been home on summer break. But if you don't know, the word karuma means car, and the Nicarus, I think, is supposed to be Nicholas in Japanese. So technically the monster is called Karuma, which is strange because they're just calling the monster Car. But yeah. Karuma Nicarus, Car Nicholas, which is kind of funny.
Karuma.
But the shenanigans begin with the start of this episode, where a father and a son are walking home, and a father has, you know what? Why don't you tell it?
Well, before we meet the kid and his dad, we get to see a little bit of Dr. Gory doing his usual hand gestures and everything, ordering Karas to go down and see what kills humans more than wars and everything. Then we get to the kid, drawing, daydreaming, and all that stuff at a bus stop, waiting for his dad to get off the bus, and then this is where he shows his son, or gives his son, the Kuruma figure that he made for himself. And you see Kara's kind of in the background taking pictures and stuff with, like, probably a 1930s camera or whatever, the way it looked. And the dad and Nicholas were walking home, and then Nicholas just doesn't, look out for traffic or anything when running across the streets here. And
I think he gets excited by seeing his mother. I think.
Yeah, seeing his mom. It's like, look what I got! Look what I got! And then a roadster vehicle hits Nicholas when he goes out and not paying attention to the roads and everything, and then his parents, in grief and all that, take him to the hospital and all that. And then Karas returns to Dr. Gory, telling him as far as cars are much more dangerous, hitting people and getting into accidents, killing people. You know the whole gig with that sort of thing. So then the kid is held in a hospital, and apparently his thoughts and probably his mannerisms and to conjure up this Kuruma figurine into an actual monster, teleporting into other spaces around, destroying cars and all that. And then you have...
It's destroying sports cars in particular, because what hit the kid was a sports car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you have Joji turning into Spectreman, trying to help the kid when he realizes that it's the boy, because he saw the little figurine when he was in that hospital room there with the kid there. And during this point in time, Dr. Gory was planning to kidnap this Kuruma to, do his own deeds and everything. So he sends out this... I forget. I'm not sure how to pronounce this name. I don't know if it's Baloo.
It's it came off as Baloo.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's like either that or Bloom, whichever.
Like to me, it sounded like Baloo the bear from Jungle Book.
Yeah. So he sends out this creature, and they were sort of kind of tasseling here and there a little bit, and then during this time, Joji finds the hit and run guy that hit Nicholas, and they were kind of in a scuffle there, and you had the military coming in, firing at Blue there, and then all of a sudden, I think later on towards the end of the episode, Blue kind of lures Kuruma with him. They were sort of buddying up a little bit there, and then to the point where Dr. Gory sends a tractor beam to teleport them into another spot, and that's pretty much the end of the episode right there.
Yeah. First of all, I want to say, like, shout out to the design of both Kuruma and Belu, because I really like the designs. Kuruma is sort of this. How would you describe? Like, it's kind of a brownish, dirt-colored kaiju that has hooks for hands. Meat hooks.
I would say think of Clayface, just a little bit
thinner.
Yes, maybe like a Clayface or a Gingerbread Man sort of looking.
Gingerbread
creature.
Man's actually better.
With kind of the traffic lights turned horizontally as eyes and all that, and then you have these kind of the rope. It sort of looks like he was run over.
Tire tread. Like that wraps like diagonally across,
and then some other road type of thing. So it looks like it was sort of run over a little bit.
It's like a car grill that's been cut in half that is on either side of the tire tread that runs diagonally up across its body. It's really ingenious. Like, it's a very creative design. What the hooks are, I have no idea. That's still something I'm still trying to figure out. Like, could it be if you get your car stuck in a ditch, is it like tow cables or something like that? But still, to me, I'm like, it's not something that cars inherently have or come with. So I still have no idea why the hooks. But then Baloo is pretty creative too. Its color is sort of a bluish gray with white lightning bolt outlines kind of scattered across its body.
Maybe
its head is
a bluish green.
And its head is sort of walrus-like almost. Think of Magma from Gorath, and then like tusks coming out of every which way of above and below its head. The kaiju design here, I think, is really cool. It's some of the best kaiju design I have seen in quite some time, since we've been covering not just this episode, not just this show, but even, Kamen Rider's not really kaiju, so I'm not going to count that, or even Ultra 7. I really like the designs. I could maybe
say that for the Kuruma design. As far as the blue one, it just, to me, in my opinion, seemed a little bit cheap.
Really?
In a way,
that was cool.
Yeah. It seemed a little bit cheap and a bit too baggy-ish.
Well, I mean, you could say that about like the King Goji suit from King Kong vs. Godzilla as well. That was more baggy than this Baloo suit. So I
beg to differ on that one.
I think you're wrong.
No,
do you want to fight
you're wrong.
Live on this podcast?
Yeah. Come at me, here,
bro. If I could stick my fist through this screen, I would.
Whatever you say.
This is interesting. You and I usually more or less sit very similarly on our opinions of movies and shows. I think this is really the first time in which we deviate quite a bit on what we think of something, so much to the point that we're ready to murder each other. No, your opinion sucks.
You're a bitch.
What are you going to do about it? I'm right here.
What are you going to do about it?
But anyway, I like the Baloo design. But gosh, we got so angry at each other. I forgot where I was going to go with this.
I would say, again, with this one, sort of similar to episode 22, when it comes to the battle sequences towards the end between Kuruma and Baloo before they sort of kind of buddy up and get beamed up by Dr. Gory. That one also was sort of half-assed in a way, along with the whole military scene firing at Baloo, that it just sort of dragged out a bit too long. Some of the music was sort of lacking there, and I think maybe used in sort of a weird way. And I'm not sure if the sound effects in this one were the same as the previous episode, or it was a little bit better. I'm sort of forgetting on that one right now, but I do remember it just sort of dragged out the same way as the last episode.
Yeah, I will say that, especially when it came to the self-defense force, more specifically their tanks firing upon Baloo, and I think even Kuruma maybe was even involved in that too. It dragged on. I will say it did drag on. And there's one particular shot where they stuck the camera in between two tanks, and more specifically, it showed more of an angled side view of one of the tanks where it would fire. I thought the model of this particular tank that they showed was pretty cool, because every time it fired, it had shocks and it would rock a moment. Mm-hmm. So I thought the miniature work was actually pretty stellar. It's not the greatest you're ever going to see, but for a series that we've occasionally complained has been lacking on sufficient miniature work, to me seems like the show is stepping that up a little bit more, where they're providing you with more miniatures, skyscrapers, cars, tanks, etc. But yeah, it did drag on too long, and the one particular shot of the camera being stuck in between two tanks it got old, like fairly quick. It would have been one thing if they showed it for like 3 or 5 seconds for a shot, but it stuck there. It went there, I think, like 3 different times. It stuck there for like a few seconds, went and showed a different shot, went back to it, and then I think it went to something else again in terms of a shot, and then one more time, I think, went back, and then it concluded on that shot again in between those two tanks. But I kind of got bored, with that self-defense force versus kaiju fight at the end, because I'm like, we know the self-defense force isn't going to do jack, against these kaiju. It's still fun to watch enough of it, but you got to know as, filmmakers, whether you're doing a show or a movie, when to sort of cut the cord on that and like progress, the battle forward, because, your audience members know tanks aren't going to do anything against these kaiju. So you need to like do something different to move forward. But that's kind of where they decided to end the episode, more or less. So do we want to go into final thoughts and ratings here?
Yeah, go right ahead.
All righty.
Yeah, because there's not really much else to talk about.
Yeah. The idea of a kaiju causing traffic accidents takes me back to Gamera versus Giron, where one of the little boys in the movie kept talking about living in a world without traffic accidents. Here we see the manifestation of a kaiju specifically causing traffic accidents. I love the design of Kuruma Nicaris and Baloo. Baloo comes off as menacing, and Kuruma Nicaris is downright unique in its design with a traffic signal set of eyes. The miniature work is stepped up, and we get a nice but arguably overly long battle between the self-defense force and the two kaiju before the episode closes. Is the series beginning to step up its game? Every time I think of one of these shows as stepping up its game, it takes a step or two back for a bit. Here's to hoping we continue to get good episodes, and I gave it an A-.
Wow. Yeah, as far as episode 23 goes, I would say it's a bit better than the previous episode. Whereas, as far as it's sort of getting back to kind of the whole thing, what the show is all about, as far as pollution and some of the other things. Although you can say it's not really much pollution in this episode here, but I mean, sort of related when it comes to cars and all that. But this one's just sort of, people getting hit by cars and all that stuff. But it at least has something going for it, and with the design aspect with Kuruma, I do like that one, but the blue one, I'm still gonna say it looks a little bit cheap and a bit big-ish, especially when comparing it to Kuruma design, and then of course you have again another battle, just like the previous episode, just drug out a little too long, where you could have had some more dialogue added into the episode to at least kind of get some things going. But at least we get some more cool, unique hand gestures for Dr. Gory this time. And it seemed like he does a lot more this time. So at least that kind of saves things a little bit. But joking set aside, I would
high bar hand gestures.
I would give episode 23 a C minus.
Boy, you're a tough crowd. But, and I've already said my piece, and it's no surprise at this point that I think this batch is really good. But would you say up to this point in the Spectreman series that maybe the entire highlight thus far have been Dr. Gory hand gestures?
That and a little bit of dragging the battle scenes.
You think that's a highlight, like in a good way? You think that's a highlight?
Talking about as far as the theme.
Oh, well, I'm talking about highlights. I'm talking about things that you have, the silver lining you have found in the series.
Oh, yeah.
Anything else? Like, besides the hand gestures, anything else?
Just the goofiness.
Yeah, but you and I have both complained, though, that the goofiness, we can go with goofiness, but we've complained that the goofiness a lot of times with this series has been so goofy that it's stupid. I don't know. This series definitely. I mean, even though again I like this current batch that we're covering, the series as a whole so far has generally been difficult to more or less sit through. But yeah, All right. Well, maybe this final episode in the batch will be a little bit more, maybe it'll be better. So mine is called Danger, Kuruma Nicarus.
Mine is Danger in the Streets, Part 2, Blind Vengeance.
Plying Vengeance?
Blind Vengeance.
What the fuck? I mean, seriously, what does that mean?
See, I knew you were going to... Just not gonna have it.
Blind Vengeance. Is this an R-rated movie we're trying to sell here?
They make it sound
Steven
like
Seagal? I mean, it sounds like a Steven Seagal movie.
I'm guessing they are trying to, but it just does not do it. That's
hell?
That's why I told you earlier that when I saw these subtitles, I knew it's you're not going to have it.
It is funny, but it's funny in a what the hell manner because it sounds like an R-rated straight-to-video movie. Blind Vengeance. This is a kid's show. Oh, man. You know what? We may have to, forget the episode. We got to discuss the subtitle here. What the hell were they thinking?
I mean, I can maybe see a little bit of the vengeance when it comes to the kid creating Kuruma through his mind and everything, and dealing with all the sports cars and everything. But that's about it.
It's not blind vengeance, though. The kid rightfully.
I'm talking about as far as vengeance. that part makes sense. But as far as blind vengeance,
but not blind
yeah,
vengeance, because okay, I gotta do that because blind vengeance to me makes it seem like you're getting vengeance for no apparent reason, but this kid definitely has a reason to go after sports cars. Okay, blind vengeance. No, that's a movie that I don't. Let's see.
At least there is a movie called Blind Vengeance.
Okay, so according to Power Thesaurus, it comes up with 4 other synonyms for blind vengeance, which is unthinking vengeance, blind nemesis, ignorant vengeance, and mindless revenge. So to me, the mindless revenge is a little bit more appropriate as far as what blind vengeance means, where it's just like, I don't know, maybe it would be something like maybe you think someone did something to you or someone did a minor thing to you, and either you are wrong in assuming someone did something to you and you're taking your anger and frustration out on them when they didn't actually do anything, or that your revenge on them is significantly worse than the offense that the other person did to you. That's kind of how I think of blind vengeance, so to speak. I don't know, like, do you think, though, the kid, maybe they mean by blind vengeance that the kid is, like, overdoing it, where he's, like, going after and destroying sports cars? It doesn't seem like he's killing people.
Now that I think about it, when he, what was it, in one of my notes, that Kuruma, when he, I think, when he's taken to Dr. Gory's hideout, and when Karas was using the gas and electricity to kind of separate Kuruma and Nicholas from his control there, that's when he disappears from the hideout and then appears in the city wreaking havoc and all the cars. Maybe that could be part of the highlight there.
Or could the blind vengeance mean that Nicholas, by controlling Kuruma, instead of going after the specific person that hit him, he's just going after all sports cars, assuming that they're all bad.
Maybe that could be one
I could
thing
be
too.
eating my words. So I'm going to say potentially blind vengeance works here. But still, why use that phrase for a kid's show?
I think this is the first that we've actually delved into a subtitle for a particular episode on any show.
Just an episode title. A title of anything that we've covered. Movies, shows, you name it. Like, even comic books that we've discussed.
Out of our 13 years of existence, it has to be this episode.
It eventually was going to happen. And you know what? It took 13 years, but here we are. All right, so why don't you give the lowdown?
Yeah, so obviously, coming off from the previous episode where Dr. Gory beams up Kuruma and Baloo into their hideout, and Baloo kind of luring Kuruma into this particular area, and then Dr. Gory and Karas traps Kuruma, and then Karas kind of goes in, tries to use all these mechanisms as far as certain types of gas and then electricity to kind of separate the control between Kuruma and Nicholas. And then something happens after the electricity phase there, and Kuruma disappears from the hideout, and kind of what I mentioned earlier, appears in a city wreaking havoc, sort of destroying some of the cars, but then at a certain point kind of snaps into sense there, sort of disappears again, and then you have Baloo being sent again by Dr. Gory, appearing in the city in front of Kuruma, and then you kind of start to have this scuffle between one another. And again, just like the previous two episodes, I think this one sort of drugged out and was sort of half-assed in a way as far as the battle goes. But after that, you have Joji finding the hit and run guy in the hospital and all that, and admitting his fault into hitting Nicholas and all that. And right after that, you had the hospital coming under attack by Baloo there, and then Joji turned into Spectreman, fighting Baloo for the time being until Kuruma appears, helping Spectreman destroys Baloo, and Spectreman is trying to trying to help Kuruma and Nicholas to kind of overcome the thing, and then you have Kuruma fading away, and then Nicholas waking up, and that's pretty much the end of the episode right there.
Yeah, and you talk about the ending battle. I just want to say there's this one moment where Spectreman is supposed to be doing like a flying jump kick of sorts, but there's one where it's most of Spectreman's body is cut out of the shot, and you kind of see like his butt and the lower part of his legs swinging across the set. It makes you think like he's swinging on a chandelier, and he goes to kick Baloo in the head, but most of the kick misses Baloo's head. Like it just grazes it enough. I'm like, that's a whoopsie shot.
or the other thing, when Baloo was about to attack Kuruma in one certain scene, it just seemed like the suit actor sort of accidentally tripped and fell and was just kind of on the ground there. I don't know if that was on purpose or it actually happened, and then there's like, and that part sort of dragged out too for whatever reason, and I don't know if it was actually real, and it's like the director behind this episode is like, we'll just leave it in here, just make it part of the episode. No,
well, and like you and I have talked about before with a lot of these shows, not only were budgets small, but I think the turnaround for producing episodes was very quick too. And so if you're producers and directors, not only did they probably not have necessarily the amount of money to sort of redo certain shots because film costs money, and if he destroyed some miniatures, they probably couldn't afford. It didn't seem like he destroyed any miniatures, but if he did, they would have to spend a moment to put those back together. But I think too, it's just like, look, we got like 20 more minutes to shoot this thing. Like we can't fool around. Just leave it in there. And
well, they did destroy some miniatures, the cars, and then throwing buildings and all that.
So. Well, yeah, but in that shot where Baloo trips, I'm not sure if any miniatures were destroyed or not. But I really like this episode. Again, because it's about traffic accidents, like I stated in my final thoughts of the previous episode, I am taken back to Gamera versus Gearon, in which one of the boys always talks about living in a world without wars and traffic accidents. And while that seems really silly, when you really think about it, if you are a kid, traffic accidents are scary. Even as an adult, traffic accidents are scary. And really, up until the last 1 or 2 years, traffic accidents in the United States were the number one killer of kids. Now it's guns in this country. But for many years, it was traffic accidents, car accidents that killed kids. So I guess, we sort of have laughed at it for years. But I think when you really think about it, like, I can see, kids being afraid of traffic accidents and all that stuff. So I dig this episode quite a bit. One of the things that I've enjoyed about this 2-episode story arc is the complicated relationship between Baloo and Kuruma, because it seems like at times they're antagonists to each other, and then other times they are buddies. And it all depends on Baloo more than anything else. Karuma's just kind of going with the flow, it seems like. So I kind of dig that, and you get something that I don't think we've seen in Spectreman so far, where you get two kaiju that kind of fight each other. Usually it's one kaiju against Spectreman.
And or so you have two kaiju fighting one another.
Yeah, I think that's the first time that's happened in this particular series. So even though, yes, we've seen stuff like this before, many times before, in movies and Ultraman and all that stuff, but in a series where it's about an android individual fighting kaiju and stuff, it's kind of refreshing just to see. I don't know if you would say Karuma is organic. I'm going to say he is, even though he's a manifestation of this.
Yeah, we don't know when he was created, so I would just
he was organic. Created through this child's psyche somehow.
Yeah.
Like when he got hit, his anger or something happened to where he was able to physically manifest Karuma, and so I'm just going to say Karuma's organic for sake of argument. But yeah, I really liked it. I will agree with you that the final battle in some respects did drag, and I think a lot of it had more to do with moments of meandering, where there was, unlike the ending of the last episode where they spent a ton of time on the self-defense force firing upon the two kaiju, this one Spectreman shows up pretty soon after the kaiju do, and there is no real reason as to why they should have meandered the way that they did in this episode, because there should have been more combat between the kaiju and Spectreman, where that just isn't the case. There are occasional shots that just are there and don't really add much to the final battle when they should have. And that I would say is sort of to the detriment of the episode a bit. I don't think it's as bad as the last episode was, but it's bad enough to where you feel it a little bit. You realize there's some lost potential here in this final battle. By the way, do you think, because we get this moment where Spectreman ends up putting a hole through Baloo, do you think, because at least mine, I'm assuming yours is too, mine is actually the American version, it's the dubbed version of the Spectreman show, do you think maybe a shot may have been edited out where they had a wide shot showing Baloo with a hole in his abdomen? To me, it seemed like there could have been. I'm not sure, but
not entirely sure. I'm not sure how they shot the episodes. I don't know if it was a camera that was suited for like a 16 by 19 screen, but I mean that was back in the 70s. But with the amount of a budget that they probably had, I would say assuming it'd be low in that regard. So they probably just had cameras that were just suited just for a 4:3 ratio screen, because that's just a regular square size.
Well, I know, but I'm talking about a shot where maybe they showed the full Baloo costume, but with the hole in it. 'Cause all we get is just barely behind Baloo with the hole.
I'm assuming probably not.
Okay. But again,
I don't have all the answers.
Well, why not? What are we doing this for then?
Just because. What a fight, bro!
Calm down. Calm down. Take a Xanax.
Why don't you calm down, buddy?
I'm not the one screaming.
Yeah, you are.
I'm being passive aggressive. But once again, the miniature work stepped up. You know, we get another cityscape thing here. Again, I'm not saying it's the greatest miniature work you're going to see, but again, for the time and for a series like this that has been kind of lacking for the most part, it's nice to actually see more miniatures other than a rural setting where it's just dirt and mountains and crap that doesn't provide a whole lot of, real entertainment value when it comes to giant monsters and creatures fighting one another.
It was sort of like that in the previous episode, but the only thing that you had going was just a bridge.
Yeah.
Couple of bridges.
Yeah. 2 bridges.
No, not just 2. 3.
Ooh, I'm like Vince McMahon. I'm like,
calm down.
I like have my mind blown.
Calm down.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say much more other than the fact that once again, I enjoy it. I might as well just go into my final thoughts here.
Yeah, do so.
While the idea of a traffic accident kaiju seems silly, the main idea behind these final 2 episodes is still very timely. I swear since COVID died down, more people are driving more recklessly. It's as if the American populace has suffered some type of nervous breakdown in recent years and their driving habits have become more reckless as a part of that. Here, miniature work is once again in full force and looks pretty good. It's not as good as what you see in a Godzilla movie or even a Gamera movie at the time, but it's still nice to see since a lot of the earlier episodes kept fights in rural settings. The fights are decent enough and the story continues to be good as well. This was a good batch of episodes and I gave it a B+.
Yeah, with this one, I would say out of the 3 episodes that we've done here today, I would say episode 24 is probably the best one out of them. Excuse me. Whereas this one, it just felt like there's a bit of more of a story to it compared to the other 2 in that regard. And then, of course, obviously you get more of the city scene here this time, which kind of is an ingredient for better battles and all that. But although, again, for the 3rd time, the battle scene sort of drug out a little bit too much here, and as well as, like what Ken said, a little bit of meandering in certain aspects of this one. I'm not going to go over as far as the suit design because we've already gone through that in the previous episode here. And then as far as the human story aspect in this one, I probably would at least say it felt like there was more meat to the bone on this one. I think I would say, comparing to a lot of the episodes, I would say it's probably one of the better ones as far as the human story aspect in this episode here. But yeah, I would say, yeah, this one is really good in that regard. So I probably would give this one a C+.
Your grades gradually went up as we went along. So, I mean, they're still lower than the ones I gave, but I don't know. Maybe subconsciously you are believing, too, that this series is finally starting to do some things right.
All I have to say is, shut up.
You can just say I'm right. I mean, you know, what's the harm in saying that? But
don't make me be like you.
But anyways, did you want to do like one more final thing of housekeeping? We'll close out the episode.
Yeah, so I would say thanks again for watching another episode of Daikaiju Network, or the DKN show, in that regard. And if you're watching us on YouTube and or on Rumble, and if you see a subscribe button down below or above, whichever you're viewing us, and just make sure to hit that so you can follow us whenever we go live or put up any new videos in that regard, and as well as smash the like button down below the video. And if you're wanting to follow Daikaiju Network everywhere, you can find us at our own Linktree URL that you can see right on your screen there, /Daikaiju Network. And besides YouTube and Rumble, we're also on Twitch, Facebook, and as well as Odyssey. And as far as audio platforms, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, as well as TuneIn. And we have both versions of video and audio episodes right on our own website at daikaijunetwork.com.
And once again, thank you so much for watching and or listening to us. And we will be back next week with 3 more exciting episodes of Spectreman
and Dr. Glory. All right.
Shadow.
All right. We'll see you guys next week.